biggest issues plaguing modern men is that the vast majority of them lack a tribe of other virtuous, trustworthy, masculine men who gather for the sole purpose of improving themselves and their lives on a daily basis. Most men simply float through space, working a dead-end job, only to go home to a nagging wife or girlfriend that doesn't respect them. Their friend circles are nothing but fat, low testosterone losers who are more concerned with what sports teams are playing this weekend and what bar they're going to watch the game at. If these men are lucky enough to unplug from the comforting lies that modern society sells them and decide they want more out of life, they look around and realize they need to get into a better room. That's where a private community of men chasing excellence comes in. Men in our community have all committed to being the best versions of themselves that they can possibly be. They willingly run toward challenges, knowing that pushing themselves out of their comfort zones is the key to unlocking their true potential as men. If you're ready to take control of your life back and curate a network of successful and knowledgeable men, now is the time to seize the opportunity.
All right, good afternoon. What's up, gentlemen? 167th installment, the Unplugged Alpha podcast series. Today, I just did a little poll on the community tab. It's now called the post tab on YouTube. See what kind of content you guys wanted to see. And there was a gentleman that, there's a bunch of really good ideas, actually. There's a dude here. I'll go through a couple that maybe these will be some future episodes. But this guy here, Phil, finding your tribe, places or environments where you can find like-minded men, which I'm actually writing about in one of the chapters of my book. So I'll just pull it basically straight from that. It's I'm not going to read it verbatim, but I'm going to give you guys a little bit of insight on what I found and through some of the polling that I did with the guys in my community, where they've also found guys that were pretty unplugged and, finding your tribe, a group of like-minded men. Before we get started, got about an hour for today's show. The call-in link is pinned in YouTube as usual. So if you have a question, we have time at the end, we can take some of those. I also want to remind you that if you have anything that you want put up on the screen, a question for me, you can also super chat that. And if you didn't catch it yet, what I usually do is whenever I publish a new video, I share it on Instagram stories with a link to it. So it's easy to sort of get through to it. You guys that have followed me for a while know that I'm a bit of a petrol head. I've always been a big fan of cars, and I've done some car reviews on the Entrepreneurs in Cars channel, but I've just started to move over anything that's going to be car related to a new channel. It's just called Richard Cooper for now. I might change it to Cooper on Cars or Richard Cooper on Cars or something like that. I'm doing a rally this week. I'm leaving Thursday. I kind of jumped in last minute, so I'm leaving Thursday, coming back Sunday, and then doing another one when I get back, like a day later, for a few days down in the States. So I'll be up in Quebec for a few days, which I'll probably film and give you guys some insight on what rally life's like, and put that on the car YouTube channel, just under Richard Cooper, just under my name. Let me grab the link if you guys are interested. I'll drop it in all chat. Sub here. But rather than sort of blend in car review or rally sort of road trips and stuff like that, like I have been in the past on the Entrepreneurs in Cars channel, I figure it's better just to dedicate it to its own channel. I've got these already published. So the one on the Plaid S, the straight pipe Range Rover, and a Model Y. And the angle that I'm taking really is just, I'm going to drive the car for a week. I'm going to make a extensive list or a note of the pros and the cons of the vehicle as I see it anyway. A lot of the feedback I got off the Plaid one, which I published on the Entrepreneurs in Cars channel, was very positive. People were saying, this is better than Marquez or, type of videos on his electric car reviews on the same car. So even though I'm not a electric car guy, I'm still going to give you the straight up and tell you, what's up on these things from my perspective as a guy that absolutely, like, first and foremost, the thing in my life that I've always been extremely passionate about, I can talk for hours without getting bored, is cars. Motorcycles, cars, anything that burns gas, anything that moves fast, I can put it that way. So if that's your thing too, link I just dropped in the live chat. You can find it on YouTube at Richard Cooper. It might be hard, like it may not pop up if you do a search. So maybe do something like Richard Cooper and then Tesla Model Y after that. And you'll probably find that it'll come up in the search. Well, it did for me anyway. So there's that, a little bit of housekeeping and announcements. All right, let's get into it. I can close this tab over here and this one. And let's talk about finding a tribe, which comes up often. And believe it or not, I have a little bit of experience in that. You may have noticed with the intro video. So I'm going to be giving you guys some spots, places, events, even some ideas, because I know some of you are all, hey, look, I live remote. I'm very rural. I don't live near a big city. I'm not in North America, so I can't make your stuff. Money might be tight, fine. So I'll give you some basic know-how. Let me tell you my own story first, actually. So around 2013, 14-ish. Okay, so this is before I was really spending a lot of time on YouTube, uploading videos, sort of working through my shit, help you guys work through your stuff when it comes to unplugging. I'm going to use that word. And I was sitting around in a couple of men's groups. There was one in EO, which was all men. And I was in another, sorry, not EO. I'm not even going to give the name of it because it's so plugged in and frustrating. I'll tell you the story why in a moment. But there's an all men's group, and there was another one with EO, which I really liked. The forum element was great, but I remember sitting in a meeting around 2013 or 14, and what you do in entrepreneurs orgs with these forum type of environments is you have private discussions. There's a confidentiality agreement. There's a constitution, all these sort of things that govern the way that you work with these other business owners. And you're kind of there as a board of directors, like a sounding board. And I think this one had 2 women in it and about 6 guys, if I'm not mistaken. And you take some time to do some updates, what was happening last month, what was working well, what wasn't working well, what are you stuck on, like what do you need help with? And the guy that was, doing his updates at the time, nice dude, fairly successful in his line of work, was probably making, mid 7 figures a year, $5-6 million a year in his business. Had been running it for 10, 15 years, drove a nice car, had a great house, teenage kids, but he was updating us on the relationship with the wife. And, you heard some soundbite of happy wife, happy life. She wasn't sleeping with him. He didn't know what to do. He was getting frustrated with it, blah, blah, blah sort of stuff. Now, I hadn't unplugged fully, at that point, but I was getting frustrated with listening to updates around happy wife, happy life, putting somebody else ahead of yourself. My proponent about self and masculinity is always put yourself first. You can't be useful to other people if you're not putting yourself first and solving your own problems and doing something of some significance. If other people don't toe the line, if other people aren't a complement to that mission and want to help you accelerate and do well in that mission, then you have to make a decision about, keeping around or letting them go. And after being in that forum for a number of years with some good people, I'm still friends with some of them. Some of them don't. There's one of them in particular that doesn't like what I do today, and I got an earful about it many years ago by text message, which was kind of funny. But I just decided to say, okay, that's enough. I don't want to do these business forums with people that are plugged in. And the conversation I also found very watered down in a room with a bunch of chicks too. You're not going to say and do what you want to say and do if you got women in the room, especially if it has to do with your own relationship, your wife, your girlfriend, whatever it happens to be. So I decided to walk away from that. And shortly after that, in the other group that I was in, which was all men's, which I thought would have been better, was actually worse in some regards. And the moment for me in that conversation was a guy that made a announcement in the chat group, probably on WhatsApp or Signal or something like that. And he's like, hey guys, I'm getting married. So everybody piles in, congratulations. I want an invite to the wedding, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. And, I waited for the congratulations to sort of end. I obviously offered him my congratulations, but I said after that, I said, look, hey, have you put some thought into mitigating risk factors and getting a prenup signed so that you don't have to worry as much about the untying of the knot. And I had just about everybody in that room pile on me like a fat kid on cake. It was like all these fat kids rushing to go and eat that one piece of cake and just like pile on it. And that's what that experience was. All because I said, hey, have you thought about maybe mitigating your risk and getting a prenup signed so that you don't run into problems later on down the road? It's like, I heard crap like, who hurt you? You're just setting up the marriage for failure if you do that, blah, 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 sort of stuff. And I was like, all right, well, that's a pretty clear indication that I'm in the wrong room. And I've always said to you guys, if you find yourself in a situation where you're the smartest guy in the room, you're probably in the wrong room. Get out of that room. So hire, slow, fire, fast. That goes for everything in life. Join a group slow, leave it fast. Take on a girl into your life, invite her into your life as a girlfriend, for example, fire her fast if she behaves badly or she's not the right fit. Same thing with employees, obviously. So hire, slow, fire, fast is something that I talked about in my first book in the Unplugged Alpha. If you guys haven't got it, get it on Amazon. Like, this is what this whole podcast series is. If you're new to this channel, it's sort of like building on the book. And there's another book coming out later on this year, which I'm just finishing up. And this chapter that I'm talking to you about is about the tribe component, building the brotherhood, because guys are always seeking that once they have unplugged. Once you've collected some new information about things in life and you update your belief system, you let go of the old beliefs that don't serve you, you update them, you unplug from the lies, and you move forward. There's anchors and sails in life. A sail will fill with wind and take you to your next port of call, to your, through your passage to your next port of call. An anchor is designed to hold you back. In life, people are either anchors or sails. So you as a guy, if you want to find your tribe, need to be prepared to cut anchors and look for sails. Okay. The more sails you have, the quicker you'll move to your next port of call. The quicker your passage will be, the better your experience will be overall. Also, being a good seaman and knowing how to captain your boat is very important. But we can save that for another time. But as far as my own experience, there was a couple of things back to back that were just like, I just can't do these groups anymore. I can't listen to Happy Wife, Happy Life. I can't listen to dudes complaining that they're not getting any intimacy with their wife. I can't listen to dudes like get pissed off because you use a word like the prenup. Oh no, God forbid you encourage a guy to protect himself should he march into marriage, which in Ontario, which where most of the members were, some of them were in the States, but this guy happened to be in Ontario in Canada, is very hostile towards men. And some guys will just like, oh, I'm plugged in beta male, so I'll just march into the slaughterhouse. It's okay. Everything will be fine because she loves me. Everything's good right now until it's not, right? But you have that conversation. A guy like me has a conversation, says, hey, think about a prenup. Everybody loses their shit. So you get the idea. So that's where it kind of started for me. So I started looking around at other places where I could find guys that were also unplugged. Now, I had a very, very hard time finding them, if I'm being honest. So I kind of look back on my past and where I had found good men that I thought were also good at being men. And here's a list of what I came up with. And some of these aren't mine. I was talking to some of the guys in my communities in my my chats, because we have a different signal chat for each group or different topics. And I got some pretty good feedback from the guys, so I'm going to dispense that now for you. So the first one that I got is anything combat strength training related. Okay. In this chapter, I'm sort of blanking it under fight gyms. Okay. I talked about it in my first book about the need for lethality. In the 1% forum, which is held later on this year in October, which is only offered currently to my inner circle. We're doing a +1 day where my old trainer is going to be taking those that are signing up for the bonus day to learn the art of disarms. The potential for a knife, a gun, in your back, from the side, back of your head, at an ATM, at carjacking. Carjackings happen here downtown Toronto. It's just reality of the world. You're driving a nice car, they can carjack you. They use different ways to carjack you. And they use different means to encourage you to follow what it is that they're doing. In some cases, it might be wise to comply. And in most cases, it's better to get out of the scenario. But there are going to be circumstances where you may not be able to deal with that, and you have to confront it head on. So we're doing a +1 day, and I'm having my instructor teach these guys, or to get them competent on knife and gun disarms. So we're going to spend the day doing stuff like that. If you guys are in the community already, make sure you bought a ticket to 1% Forum. The bonus day is available too. But the first one that I put here is fight gyms. So I already talked in the book about the importance of learning lethality. But these places are where I found some of the coolest, most naturally unplugged guys. Not all of them, but a good chunk of them. And if you look at Dana White as an example, the CEO of the UFC, watch any of his podcast interviews. And you can tell this guy doesn't give a flying F, does what he wants, puts himself first. The opinions of others don't matter. This is all very high up on the scale and a natural unplugged type of guy. These are the kinds of men that you want to have around you. So joining a fight gym, learning a discipline. I like boxing personally, myself, because you got to learn how to throw hands, my opinion. You want to stay on your feet in a street environment. I did one fight in the boxing discipline in the dojo, just sort of test myself. But I think for the vast majority of stuff in the street, I'm looking for useful skills in the street. I know some people like jujitsu. I know some people like kickboxing, stuff like that. But for me, I look at practicality. Like here in Canada, you've got two main categories of guns, non-restricted and restricted. The restricted are the handguns. To me, there was way too many laws and restrictions to own a handgun, so I just didn't bother. Some people argue, well, buy it, get the licensing to have the gun just so you have it, sort of thing. But I just don't see the reasoning behind it. The same way that I don't see the reasoning behind learning kickboxing. I don't want to be throwing legs. I want to be throwing hands, because you can lose your balance. I don't like Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It's interesting. I know that some people like it. It's a great exercise, but my intent is not to get on the ground and roll around. Somebody can come around the corner and kick you on the head. There could be other guys there. You're kind of screwed, right? So it's like fight gyms. I look for disciplines and learning skills like Krav Maga and boxing. Those would be my favorite. If you want to get into others, they're great. But the good news is the vast majority of guys that I've come across in fight gyms are very unplugged. Jake Shields, I met him when I was down in Vegas. I was on his podcast. He gave me a ride back to the house that we were staying in after the show. We had a nice long conversation. Very unplugged guy naturally, just naturally. I've met a few MMA fighters personally that are just naturally unplugged guys. Good men that are also good at being men, and they surround themselves with other good men. So that's one place that you can go. I think that strength training gyms are probably, or should be, included in that. Although because the element of combat isn't included, it's more about building muscles. And one of the things I realized about 5 or 6 years ago is it's great having muscle and having some strength to move heavy things, but do you know how to apply it to get out of a sticky situation? So that's why I pivot more on the fight gym side rather than just getting big. Getting big gets you out a lot of problems though. I've never been in a fight in a bar, nightclub, on a street, just because I've always held myself out high, shoulders back, chest out. I've always been fairly strong and looked fairly strong. So people just don't mess with you, generally speaking, if you look like a threat. It's the ones that don't look like a threat that are easier targets. So I guess that's one of the benefits as well. But there's some good guys that lift weights. One of the things I do after my workout, I often sit in the sauna, and, there's a lot of conversations that happen in the sauna, with these guys, and we shoot the shit. So I've got a pretty good idea of what these guys are about. So fight gyms, strength training gyms, I'll leave it at that. You guys can move into those areas and find opportunities to hang around with those guys. By the way, most of the guys in my community that are coming out to these events, they already participate in these two areas anyway. They're already strong and they already fight. So just to give you an idea of the kind of people in that inner circle. Motorsports is the next one that I've listed. Not as high up as fight gyms, but a lot of the guys that I've met over the years that have been riding motorcycles, have raced cars, either professionally or recreationally, that do rallies. Like some of my favorite guys are in the rally groups. We have a fucking blast when we do these road trips. They're good men. They're good at being men. We have fun. We have each other's back. We look after each other, sort of thing, as it's needed while we're on the road. But there's a disproportionate amount of guys involved in some form of motorsports that are also fairly unplugged naturally. Not all of them, but a good chunk of them. Okay. You're not going to find a space, like even in my own community, I'll admit not 100% of the men in there are fully unplugged, Most of them are, though. The vast majority of them are. Like, I've seen guys make some stupid decisions. Fine. I'll tell you that you're doing it. Moff will also point it out. And if you don't listen, I don't know what to tell you, right? But motorsports, I found, is a natural place. So if you like cars, motorcycles, join a car club, join, if you drive an Audi, join your Audi club, BMW, whatever, Hondas, go to the drag strip, go to the tracks, network with guys, talk to them, introduce yourself, ask some questions, be curious. This is how you form these brotherhoods, right? So let's move on from motorsports. The next one I jotted down after that is libertarians. Now, not all libertarians are unplugged. Again, as we sort of go down the list, you're going to get more plugged in beta males over here. One of the points that a buddy of mine made, because he works in DC, and he was telling me that, excuse me, I brought this up, and he was telling me, not in DC, Rich. He goes, the vast majority of guys that I know that are libertarians in DCs are mostly like dorks. Okay. Maybe that's because they're on the lobbying side or they're involved in politics in that space. But the kind of libertarians that I'm thinking about, like one of the conferences that I went to last year, I was invited to speak at the Rebel Capitalist Conference, which is George Gammon's, that good dude, shout out to George. And a lot of the guys that I met there were just like naturals. And I was surprised at the amount of people that were, one, receptive to the conversations that I was having, and two, already knew who I was. And this conference is really for like libertarians. They want freedom of choice. They don't want government involvement in their life. They like sound money, gold, Bitcoin, stuff like that. Although the gold Bitcoin guys often have, disagreements, but it is what it is. But a lot of them I found were fairly well unplugged. So I think that on the political spectrum, you've got the lefties, you got, the conservatives on the right, the righties. And I think somewhere in between there, you've got a more moderate stance that just doesn't want government around, that doesn't want government telling them what to do, that doesn't want extra laws on their life that are unnecessary, that restrict them in some way, shape, or form. Higher taxes, are another thing that libertarians don't want anything to do with. They think tax rates should be lower. I'm that kind of guy as well. So there's that. So, you can lead into groups like Bitcoin type of guys, libertarian type of conferences. From the feedback I got from my buddy in DC, stay away from the DC, like political lobby type of groups. Doesn't seem to be the right ones. And then I've got a few other groups, which I don't have a lot of firsthand experience with. Like, okay, sorry, there are some in here, like gun clubs. So I've been a member of a few gun clubs over the past few years. I've joined one recently, and I'm just sort of going through my probation phase. Because a friend of mine was a member of the club, and I met a lot of the guys, and I came there as a guest, and we sat down. They have like a breakfast lounge and all that sort of stuff. And you start talking to these guys, and they get it, right? It's like, I think guys that are interested in firearms training, gun clubs, marksmanship, whatever it is that you want to call it, are generally pretty unplugged. So you can find a lot of them in those spaces too. I've found that personally as well, and a lot of people have sort of corroborated that too. Cigar lounges, I don't really smoke cigars, but many friends of mine have said cigar lounges. Crypto communities, I mentioned that. Ranchers, tradesmen, gentlemen's clubs, whiskey lounges, powerlifting gyms. And I've also heard the mining community, which I thought was a strange one. I do have a friend that works in mining in Australia, who's a member of the group. But the notion of miners, I thought was interesting, because it's like, yeah, they're probably a really good group of guys for what they're doing, and they get it and why they're doing it. They get paid well for doing it as well. But you're hardly going to move out to the middle of nowhere, which is usually where most of these mining operations happen, to network with other guys. But you'll find it if that's what you're looking for. What else do I have in here? So there's a problem with all of these too, right? Is as you sort of go down the list, and like even in the fight gyms, for example, they're not all unplugged. But as you sort of go down the list, there's less of those guys, and I would say there's probably more of the plugged in guys. And one of the things that I've learned about people in general is they don't generally want to hear your opinion. They want to hear their opinion coming out of your mouth. So if you're in a room where there's a lot of plugged in dudes and you start to have conversations, it's almost like, you go in and, you raise your flag, you run up the flagpole, and you're looking for people to salute, what you're about. Do they subscribe to your brand of whatever, it happens to be. And you're going to find a lot of them will challenge you on it. You're going to find a lot of plugged in guys. You're going to find them get upset with you. They're going to use a lot of the sign language tactics that women use: shame, insult, guilt, need to be right, stuff like that. Like I said earlier, they don't really want to hear your opinion when they're still plugged in. They want to hear their opinion coming out of your mouth, and they're not going to change it. They're not going to change their views, even if they're a member of a gun club or a cigar lounge or a fight gym or something like that, until they've hit some sort of chaos, right? I've talked about this before. The thing that leads most guys to the unplugging process, as I describe it, as it's written in my book, as we discuss with these podcast series, is some form of chaos in their life. That's just the truth of it. Divorce, she cheated on him, a business partnership went south and he got screwed, something that just derailed his life, that caused him to question the beliefs that he held so true and strong. Let me describe it this way. So there's a notion of a safe world theory, okay? And it's, if you can picture a house of cards, what a lot of guys do is they'll build a house, which is really just a house of cards, and it's very fragile. And they really ego invest in that building, in those ideas, in the entire ecosystem around it. You can think of each card as an idea. Like, you can put a card in that house of cards, happy wife, happy life. You can put another card in, like, just do the right thing all the time. You can put another card in, whatever it happens to be, so on and so forth. You get the point. And the safe world theory that you build, the bigger that you build it, when that chaos hits it and the whole fucking thing comes down, the bigger the house and the bigger you've built it and the more you've ego invested into it, the harder it is for you, right, to get past it, to unplug and stay unplugged. That's the other thing too. I've seen guys that will unplug, see the code in the matrix, they get it all, they understand what works and what doesn't work, and then they slowly revert back to the plugged in mindset, usually with something to do with a woman, girlfriend, wife, somebody that they're going to marry, sort of thing. And then you don't hear from them again, and then they go back to their same old bullshit, right? So that's one of the things that you're always going to risk in a much higher level when you're dealing with a lot of these outside communities. There's the notion of us versus them that Jack Donovan talks about in his books. He also makes it clear the way of men is the way of the gang. That's how men are. We're tribal. That's just how we roll. So finding a tribe of like-minded men, as I talked about in the opening with the request for this sort of podcast topic, I think is a good one, and it's certainly worth contemplating. So let's move on to how I solved my problem. I'm just reading this here from my laptop. I've got computer screens all around me today. So I didn't start solving this problem that I had with wanting to surround myself with better people until I probably had a few 100,000 subscribers on my channel, and guys were asking for meetups, get-togethers. What about some in-person training? I was doing a lot of one-on-one coaching too. I still do it. You guys can find that on my website at richcooper.ca, but I was doing a lot of one-on-one coaching, and people were asking for more. Hey, what about a get-together? Hey, I'm a member of this club. Can I invite you out? Like, that's how I met the guy that was a member of the gun club. He followed my content, sent me a message on Instagram. Hey, I know you like guns. I've seen your stuff. I'm a member of this club. Let's go shooting together. I didn't know the guy from a hole in the wall, but he was a nice enough dude. Met up with him, took me shooting, met a whole bunch of cool other people. So it was a little bit easier for me to sort of like suss all these guys out and sort of like move around and figure it out. But I knew that I needed to solve my problem. And I started very simply with a Patreon community, which I had to leave. I had to abandon because I saw how Patreon was treating its creators. And if you did or said anything that was outside of the box, they were deplatforming people. They were letting them go. And they didn't want to build my house on somebody else's foundation. I also investigated the board or the owner of Patreon, at the time, and he was a dork. He was a plugged-in dork for sure. So I knew that I was in the wrong room again. So what do you do when you're in the wrong room, guys? You get out of the room, right? And then I started building out the community in other ways. Facebook was another platform that we tried. That didn't work because there was a time when I got banned on my own fucking private group. You'd think that you'd build a private group on a social media site like Facebook and they wouldn't bother you. But no, they still bother you. It's a private group, even though all the people in the group are private members and they've paid to be there. They'll still monitor your shit. And if they don't like something, or the algorithms don't like something that you say or do, you get put in Facebook jail for a week, which was just stupid. It's like, how do I get locked out of my own community for a week because of something that the algorithms didn't like? So I was like, fuck Meta, fuck Zuckerberg. I'm done with that as well. So I had to build it on my own platform, which is working now. So if there's a ticker going on the bottom, entrepreneursandcars.com/community. I'm going to explain the community module the way that I've built it a little bit more. Actually, it's probably easier if I just pull it up on the screen here and do it that way. Yeah. I think we're still under some construction on the site, but it should be up. Yeah, it's up. Okay. So let's go through this together and I'll explain this in a little more detail, because there's always questions. What does it work? What is it? Da, da, da. So if you go to entrepreneursandcars.com/community, the URL is join-now. It just forwards to another page, but it's the same thing. There's kind of an explainer video there, which is fine. Then we talk about the different paths. Can I make this a little bit bigger? Okay. And then we talk about the different paths and the different tiers. Because I'm fully aware that not everybody is a high-level entrepreneur making lots of money that wants to, join a group and has the kind of money to spend to join events like on super yachts or to fly to Panama for a week and stay in a beach house down there, sort of thing. So we've tiered it to make it simple for guys. The first tier is only like $49 a month, so less than $50 a month, so way less than the price of a coffee a day. If you're going out to Starbucks or any of the fancy coffee shops, even a Dunkin' Donuts, and getting a nice coffee, it's going to cost you a couple bucks and change. So for less than the price of a coffee a day, you can join my lowest tier community, which is only $49 a month. And you can do all that from the page. You just go and click the learn more, and you can get started right away. It's not a lifetime commitment. You can leave if you want. You can leave after a month if you want. It doesn't matter to me. But that's the starting point. And that's more of an online sort of group. So you're not going to have an invite to come out to, like an Algonquin trip like we did a couple weeks ago that, we talked about a couple shows ago. But it has all the material well organized. There's over 50 hours of video content that's well organized and explains the unplugging process, how to do it, how to optimize wealth, how to optimize self-care, how to optimize your experience with women, everything. A lot of the stuff that's in there, I can't talk about publicly on YouTube because it's YouTube. And I've told you what's happened in the past on platforms like Meta and Patreon and all this sort of thing. And I'm well aware of the boundaries that I can operate within. Like the confines of YouTube are there. And the only places that you can speak freely are not on their platforms. So there's going to be stuff that's in there that I've never talked about, which you will find useful. So we call this the foundation. That's the way it's been, described on the page anyway. So $49 a month, or you get a discount if you pay annually. It's only $440 for the year. That's where you start. There's weekly Zoom calls. I did my weekly Zoom call this morning. It's called Coffee with Coop. I get on the horn with my coffee, 7 o'clock in the morning for 90 minutes. Take as many questions as comes up on any topic that you want to discuss. Whether it's something in the library that is in the classroom segment. There's also my team of experts, which you're starting to see more and more of on this YouTube channel. If you haven't noticed, Moff is doing a show on the weekends now, either Saturday or Sunday. The last one was on Sunday, and he had a few of the generals on there from the different tiers. Chris Eaton was the guy that was hosting the ladies' night last night. Give him a chance. He's really good. He's just warming up. It's one of his first times hosting a show, but he's unplugged. He's fully unplugged. I've had plenty of private conversations with him. We had a nice talk when we were in Algonquin. And these are the kind of guys that I want leading, like a lot of these groups. So that's the starting point. That's where you get them. We have a guy in there that shows you how to optimize your Instagram. We have a guy that shows you how to optimize for LinkedIn. And we have a guy that shows you how to optimize for investing with crypto and currency exchanges and stuff like that. There's, of course, my Zoom calls. Moff does his own private Zoom calls. And you can watch whichever ones you want. Okay, it's very simple. The next one up from that is a School of Entrepreneurship, which is a program that I've had for a while. I've talked about the different wealth creation methods, C-suite jobs, licensed professional, that would be doctor or lawyer, whatever, some kind of an influence, like you control an audience, actors, musicians, influencers, even high ticket sales. You're selling expensive cars, real estate, yachts, jet planes. You get paid a commission for all that sort of stuff. STEM, science, technology, engineering, maths. I've talked to lots of guys that work for the FANG companies like Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, stuff like that, that are tech leads that make well into high six figures, even low seven figures annual compensations. So these are all jobs that pay very well. But the one that I like the most for me personally, and it's why, hint, hint, my first YouTube channel was called Entrepreneurs in Cars, is because entrepreneurship is my chosen path. It's the fastest, quickest, most free path that you can choose to create substantial wealth. So the School of Entrepreneurship is the next tier up. It's $14.97 a year. Weekly Zoom calls, business reviews, focus more on business. The content is focused more specifically on business, creating a business, running a business. If you're running a business, to pivot a business, how to structure the business so that it's optimized for the best lifestyle and freedom that you can accomplish. All that good stuff. You can go check that out. The reviews are phenomenal. It's a great product. Go look at it. That's the next tier up. The next one up is the Unplugged Brotherhood. This one over here. That's a lifetime of $34.97. And if I'm not mistaken, MOF is increasing the price on that very shortly. But it goes beyond the theory of the classroom stuff. So the first two are classroom stuff. There's no meetups. If you want to do meetups, if you want to come out to Algonquin, if you want to come to Panama, if you want to come to Navy SEAL training in San Diego, if you want to do Rich Graham's course in Florida, if you want to do the Tough Mudders, if you want to do the Lake House, with TC and the boys in Chicago, doing some boating. If you want to do stuff like this, the vast majority of it's in North America. We have other teams. We have other chapters around the world. The New Zealand, Australia chapter is doing a get-together. We've got one in Europe as well. So you can check those out. Okay, so that's the in real life meetup. The vast majority of you guys watching are in North America, so we focus at North America, and that's just the way that it is for now. We're going to build on that. Sure, you're living in some obscure place in Morocco or Argentina or something, perhaps in the future, but this is where we're at right now. And on those, there's a members map, so you can see where all the members are, and you can click and you can message them and say, hey, I'm in this town, let's grab a dinner. And these guys do this routinely. A lot of the guys want the ease of a tribe or a community. If you already watch my stuff and you know me and you like me and you trust me and you're looking for a community, this is where you go and do it. Again, the ticker at the bottom is a starting point, and the Unplugged Brotherhood's the next tier up. The top tier, almost top tier, I'll clarify that in a moment, is a 1%. That's the most exclusive tier. This is where you get into stuff like super yachts. This is where you get into Mediterranean trips. We're working on one right now with a MLB baseball player that has a place in Italy that we're putting together. These are the invite only, highest level. This is for the guys that are making the serious bucks that want to network with the top shelf. And then we have one on top of that, which is my generals tier, which is my closest network of the best guys that I've met in that group. Very straightforward stuff. If you're new to all of this, again, just start at the School of Unplugging. It's $50 a month. It gets you started, and it explains all the absolute basics that you have to understand. Make sense? Straightforward. What else do I have here in my chapter that I should probably highlight? Again, this is work in progress, so I'm not going to read it to you. It'll be in the book. But one of the points that I've talked about in here is the notion of a sigma, which is often portrayed as a lone wolf, the kind of guy that doesn't need validation or group affiliation. Now, I find that interesting because a lot of people will be like sigma, sigma, sigma. They'll throw it in the comments, and I'll be like, okay, well, that's interesting. And then, they use the notion of a lone wolf, but wolves aren't lone, and lone wolves don't live very long. Wolves are pack animals. There's a hierarchy. I think that the notion of a sigma, personally, is like romanticized by people that are unplugged. They may be an alpha, but they don't have friends. Like, they don't have a network that they can rely on. And I can tell you from my own experience, as an introvert, you're not going to get very far in life as an introvert. Very few are able to do it. You want to go out and live in the middle of the woods in the Yukon. I've seen some really good examples of like Sigma type characters. There's documentaries out there on, I can't remember the guy's last name, but it was Richard something. He built like this life up in, I think, was he the Yukon or the Northwest Territory, wherever it was, middle of nowhere, up in the freaking woods in the cold, built a log cabin, lived there for 40 years. They documented the whole thing, but it's like, he doesn't like people, right? And if you don't like people, then why would you want to find a tribe, right? So there's no tribe of Sigmas. Your tribe of Sigmas is a tribe of unplugged alphas. It's basically what it is. And they're a gang. They have a network. They rely on each other. They hold each other accountable, that sort of stuff. So, like the truth of the matter really is wolves really are pack animals, and they're always going to form like a hierarchical gang or tribe, if I can put it that way. And that's just the way it is. So those are all the main points that I wanted to pull out of this chapter and sort of touch on, for the sake of that gentleman's ask and for the brevity of the show. I wanted to keep it tight for you guys. But yeah, that's what I got for you, gents. So you want a tribe, you want a gang, you want to find like-minded men, as our friend said in the comments earlier on that post. They're out there, and you will find them. And I encourage you to do so. But again, if you've watched my stuff and you know me and you like me and you trust me, why wouldn't you want to get on the inside of my tribe, of my gang, of my community, whatever it is that you want to call that group? There's all kinds of different names you can label on it, but that's what it is. We do regular shit. If you like doing cool shit with cool people, join the higher tiers. If you want more of an online presence at a lower cost, join the lower tiers. One of the cool things that we do within the community is if you've joined a lower tier and you want to move up to another tier or move into one that gives you the option to meet with other people and come out and do in real life events, the calendar is on the pages. You can always ask Moff, hey, what's coming up? He's working on another one for Formula One event in Las Vegas later on this year. So there's literally almost something happening every month, if not every 2 months. There's usually about 8 to 10 calendar events per year now. Some of them are recurring, like the Algonquin is kind of like a test. I was talking to Moff about relabeling that, like the test or the challenge or something of that nature, because it's difficult. And there's lots of elements of training and mindset that are dealt with during the event, along with the surprises that come along the way. We had to mount a search and rescue for, something that just sort of pops up in life, as you're out doing these things. So these tests are really important. So there's all that. Does that make sense? Hope that makes sense to you guys. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up on that note. I hope that you enjoyed this podcast episode. I will be on the road for the next few days, so I won't be on Moff's General's call, but he'll be on that. And I probably won't be around for next week's cast because I have another rally coming after that where I'm going down to the States. But I'm going to record it, kind of make a vlog sort of story and tell you a little bit more about it. And like I said earlier on the show, when I showed you my new YouTube channel just under Richard Cooper, that's where I'm going to put all the car content. So it's separated from the the stuff that's all on entrepreneurs and cars, where I'm just sort of talking about squaring away your head now, because I've bolted my GoPro to the windshield long enough that that's kind of what you expect from that channel. All right, guys, have an awesome one. All right, guys, if you enjoyed that podcast, make sure you visit my website at richcooper.ca to learn more about my courses, my book, The Unplugged Alpha, community, or booking me for private coaching. Also, if you are a Canadian with $15,000 or more of credit card debt and what you are doing right now isn't paying off the balances, then visit totaldebtfreedom.ca and hit get a free quote to see if you qualify to settle your credit card debt for less than you owe today over the next 48 months. Make sure you check out the top pinned comment on YouTube for all the links mentioned during the show. Peace.